When I first started this project, I wanted to learn the life story of my Uncle Tom. He passed away 6 years ago, and I wish I had a chance to know him better. I always knew he was the closest sibling to my mother, though I really didn't know a lot about his life. I wanted to learn more, as well as urge my mother to talk about him and recognize that he has passed, but there is still so much he is a part of. I began by listening. I called my mother and slowly brought Tom into our conversations, and away she went. Hours would pass, and I had the perfect gateway into Tom's life through her stories. These are just a few of many, many stories about Uncle Tom, and I would like to share them with you. Uncle Tom was an amazing man who would do anything for anyone. At the age of 12, he had a small business selling muskrat pelts. He caught, skinned, and dried the pelts himself.
He had a mail-order muskrat company going when he was 10, 11 years old. The guys would come to the door, and he'd go out in the garage and sell them muskrat pelts. This is before internet, before anything. They didn't even call up because there was no such thing as a phone except in the house. They'd just knock on the door and say, "Is this the place for the muskrat pelts?" And he'd take them in this kid. You know, he's 10, 11 years old. He used to go check his traps and everything. He trapped muskrats.
In one of the many photographs my mother sent me, Tom is sitting around a table with his brothers, sisters, and father.
It was called the Old Mill. It was an old mill. It was made into a restaurant. And the Monday after Easter, my aunt used to always take us there because she had Easter Monday off. She took us to the Old Mill.
Uncle Tom had a Native American friend who gave him an eagle feather one time, which almost got him into some serious trouble with the law.
His friend's grandfather was the Indian chief, and his, the arrow, not the arrow, the eagle feather. Oh, he'd be called in. He'd tell me, "Oh, Spencer, that's a town near us." He'd say, "Oh, I was in the police station in Spencer today. They pulled me over for the eagle feather, then they had to call up." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I have permission from Chief Blankety Blanks." And they had to call up the grandfather, and the grandfather would say, "Oh, yeah. Tom has permission to wear an eagle feather." I gave it to him. Imagine.
Tom attended UMass for his BA, but he almost fell short of his degree.
I told you, he called me one time from a payphone. He said, "I don't think I'm going to go back to school." And I said, "I'm not talking to you until you're back in school. So you won't hear from me. Don't call me. I'm not going to talk to you until you're back in school."
As Tom grew up, he was always there for his family, and mine as well. I was told stories about him building a garage and adding a new addition to a house I lived in at a very young age.
That's what he did. He was a top woodworker. He did the top floor of Bacon Street, and he made the bathroom like a sauna. He had strips of wood. I forgot what kind of wood. Maple, I guess. In the bathroom, on the floor, in the walls, in the ceiling. It was amazing what he did.
I am lucky to have been able to talk to my mother and learn about Tom. At the same time, I feel our countless hours of what we now call Tom time is helping her cope with the loss. For years, my mother had a shrine set up, and although I didn't completely ignore it, I didn't understand it and acknowledge that this was what she needed and helps her remember her baby brother. A main part of this shrine was a deer skull, which to some may appear daunting, though to my mother is anything but.
I wanted a deer skull since I was 10 years old. It was something I always wanted. A deer skull. Nice, beautiful deer skull to put on the wall.
My mother loves hiking and feels the presence of Tom wherever she goes.
That, when you think about Tom, you go out and you find it. Now, we were walking in the woods, and we were talking about, Tom always had a knife on him and everything, and we're walking in the woods right here in Michigan, and I look down, and there's a knife. But that knife was right there. And there was a big blue jay that was squawking because he wanted the knife. You know, Blue Jays collect stuff. You know? So that was the knife, and it was found at Independence Lake in Michigan. That's where it was found.
Tom had a wonderful girlfriend who he was with for 20 years and ended up marrying her shortly before passing. Her name is Anne, and they were the perfect couple. Never a dull moment. Even through 3 strokes, Tom took care of every aspect one could possibly imagine for her. He would dress her, bathe her, and feed her. She ended up getting better, though this, unfortunately, was when Tom got the bad news and became very ill. My mother and Anne took care of Tom the entire way through. These are just a few of the stories, and I hope I was able to briefly sum up the life of an amazing man who influenced so many people, and his stories of who he was and what he did will continue to bring my mother and I closer than we ever were.